Good evening, Rabbi. We're going to discuss tonight the issue of Parashat Mishpatim, the Parsha Shavua of this week. One of the interesting things about this Parsha is it's telling you also the flip side of Judaism, something that a lot of people don't realize sometimes. What is that? We're talking about the issue of Ben Adam Lechavero, that there are certain mitzvot, everybody knows, which are between man and God. You have a certain obligation to do towards God, to put tefillin, to keep Shabbat, for prayers, all kinds of things. But there's also Ben Adam Lechavero, there's also between man and his fellow man. This is also another very important element of Judaism. What does that mean? You have to behave towards your fellow man with fairness, with justice, with kindness, appreciation, all the good things that a person has to show his fellow man, in order that we get along with each other and we don't harm each other. This is the idea. So the truth is that the mitzvot are divided up into two categories when it comes to this. The first category is Ben Adam LeMakom, whatever is between you and God, and then Ben Adam LeChavero, whatever is between you and mankind. So this parasha is coming to tell you many of the mitzvot that are between man and his fellow. This is the idea. Not to do all kinds of things to harm your fellow man, to harm your fellow Jew. These are the things that we're talking about over here. So, interesting thing regarding this, right? That which is we consider to be worse? To do a sin against God only, or something which is between you and your fellow man? Which is considered to be worse? So Chazal say that between your fellow man, you and your fellow man, it's considered to be more severe. Why is that? Because if you sin against God, so God, can forgive you. You cut a deal with Him. Do some tshuva, you give some tzedakah, whatever it is, you study some Torah, whatever, and you'll get forgiven. You get kapara. But when it comes to Ben Adam Lechavero, when it comes to things which are between you and your fellow man, you cannot get forgiveness just from God. It's not enough. You also have to get forgiveness from Him as well, that person that you harmed. So that's why, in that sense, it's more severe, because you need forgiveness from both two sides now. First God and then the human being also as well. If God forgives you, what about the human being? So the truth is, the Chazal say, brought down the Gemara, brought down the Shulchan Aruch, that there are sins like this that a person does between man and his fellow. So God will not forgive you until you get first forgiveness from your fellow man, the one that you did harm to. So it's considered to be more severe in that sense. Just getting forgiveness from God is not enough. You have to go also to your fellow man as well, because you harmed him. Whatever it is the person did to his fellow man, he stole from him, whatever it is, right? He destroyed his property, mutilated something. He beat him up, whatever it is, right? All kinds of things like this. He drew blood, bloodshed. Broke his tooth. He broke, something. Whatever. Something like he broke his arm. Things like this. All these kinds of things, they're considered to be very severe in the sense that what now you,
verbally assault.
Verbally, yeah, of course, yeah. This is also very true. A verbal assault is also considered to be a part of this as well. Absolutely. That's what's called in Hebrew. It's called onat dvarim. Right? Verbal, as you said, verbal assault. Onat dvarim. That's what they call it. So a person needs also. What does that mean? If he assaulted his fellow verbally by disgracing him or embarrassing him or things like this, so he has to apologize for that. Go and say apologies. And hopefully the person will forgive him, if it wasn't something too severe, from the good of his own heart. That's the idea, right? So that's the difference between the ones that the sins are between the man and his fellow, and between man and God. Between man and his fellow is more severe, as we said. That's the idea. Okay, so this is why a person has to know all these laws, and there is a whole section of the Shulchan Aruch which is dedicated only to these laws. Which one is that? In the Shulchan Aruch we have 4 portions over there, right? We have Orach Chaim, which is the daily things that people do, prayers, keeping holidays, keeping Shabbat, things like this. This is the daily stuff. Then we have Yoredea, which is more like ritual, prohibitions, kashrut, nida, family purity, all kinds of things like this. A person has to keep ritual things, not to eat the improper foods and so forth, so on, not kosher foods. Then you have the third one is about marriage law, Eben Ezer, right? That's the third part of the Shulchan Aruch. Those are the first 3 parts. So then the final part is what? Choshen Mishpat. Choshen Mishpat is talking about these laws which are between man and his fellow. So there's a whole portion of the Shulchan Aruch just devoted to that. How long does it take to learn this portion? It could take maybe 10, 15 years, if you're lucky. You know? There's a lot of details about all kinds of laws. For instance, right now we're studying the laws of neighbors. You may think, what is that? Oh, what is that? That has to do with Judaism? What does that have to do with Judaism? Judaism is tefillin. No, it's also what? That if you have a neighbor that you live by, there are certain things you cannot do to him to damage his property, to damage his his rights as a neighbor. These are all delineated in the halakha, the Shulchan Aruch. What a person cannot do to his neighbor, how he has to treat him. He can't even write, just recently we're discussing the issue of invasion of privacy as well. What does that mean? That a person has a private courtyard, let's say, or he has a house, and you're like peeping at him, So this is also considered to be, many times, also an assault on a person's privacy, invasion of privacy. And on that also, a person can have a sin, He has to get forgiveness for that, he has to pay the person if he damaged something, so forth and so on. That's the idea. So we see from there, that's considered to be something very, very severe, all these things. And a person has to study them in order to what? In order to avoid doing harm to his fellow man. Because you don't know what you're doing. What does that mean? There are also laws of theft, about gezel. There are things that people do, they don't realize that you're stealing from your fellow man. They think stealing is only, like you take his watch, and you like grab it and run off. That's not the only thing which is stealing. There's also other types of stealing. That a person doesn't have to really do anything, just the fact that he doesn't pay a person, let's say, right, when he has to owe him money, that's also like stealing. You have a debt with the guy, you don't want to pay him, you have the money to pay. You have the money, let's say the money's in your bank, right, and you don't want to pay him, the guy, no, I don't want to pay him that money, that's for something else. What do you mean for something else? You owe the person money. Pull the money out of the bank and pay the guy. This is the idea. So this is the reason why that a person has to be very careful to study these laws and also to uphold them as well. There's all kinds of details about how to treat your fellow man in all kinds of scenarios, whether it's business, whether it's rental agreements or transactions, how to buy and sell from each other, business, there's all kinds of laws about that, investments, loans, interest, all these issues have halachot that must be studied. And this is called kosher mishpat, right? That's the idea. So, a person has to study them very, very well, these things. I want to give you just one example of what it says in this parsha, besides the issue of ben adam l'chavero, right, between man and his fellow. There's also something interesting that it says. It says, right, mechashefa lo techayeh. What does that mean? It says that if you know that a person is a sorcerer, don't let him live. You have to kill the guy. He's liable to death, right? Yasha, come sit down, join us. Yasha.
Please, I have to go.
I
have a party in my house.
Party. Oh, party. He's got a party.
Gas, I have gas. They came
Okay.
to my sister.
Oh. Okay. So what we're saying is, right, that if the Jewish people, they're not allowed to have sorcerers amongst them. There's all types of sorcery that they used to do in the old days. Nowadays, there's different types of sorcery also, all kinds of things. But the point is that all types of sorcery, whatever they may be, they are prohibited to the Jewish people. If a person, that person is a sorcerer, that person has to be put to death. A person who does sorcery has to be put to death.
You think it exists today, sorcery?
You have your friend over there, Ask him if it exists. He'll tell you all the details. Oh, that guy over there. Right, Yellowstone guy. Yellowstone 108, Yellowstone 108. Okay. You get the idea. So, sometimes in Florida. Okay, so whatever it is.
Atlanta.
Whatever it is. So, the idea is like this, right? That you have to ask a question. Why is it so severe to do sorcery? What's the big deal? It's like you're doing a magic trick, a little bit trick, pulling some kind of a stunt. What's the big deal about sorcery? Why does it have to be that a person is liable to death for sorcery,
Even
so severe like that?
Even if it's with good intention?
Oh, that's an interesting idea, by the way. There's a lot of issues about that.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Sometimes people do sorcery to heal,
To heal.
and sometimes it's allowed to do that. in cases where the person is in danger.
Mm.
So sometimes it is allowed to do things like
What
this.
about to make good
Yeah.
things happen? You know,
Like what?
like to patch up a family together, or
Okay. Well, no, that's not allowed. The truth is, it's not allowed to
That's
do
not
that.
allowed.
Not allowed to do that. And also, we don't really know if it's going to work. But anyway, the point is, right, that even if it's not going to work, it's not allowed anyway.
that's not allowed. I'm surprised.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, the sorcery doesn't do that. It doesn't patch up families. That's not what it does. It does all kinds of, evil schemes usually. All kinds of,
Yeah.
underhanded, under the table,
Yeah.
all kinds of.
Yeah. That's what he told me from Yellowstone.
Okay.
He said, "I have
Yeah.
somebody that can do it,
Yeah.
but then you may pay the ultimate price." He actually even learned the consequences.
Oh, okay. I got you. So,
But this was a long time ago when he
Okay.
first started studying it.
yeah,
You
get into it.
remember?
Get into it.
Yeah, when he
Okay, I
got
got
into
you.
it, yeah.
Right? There's all types of sorcery, by the way. So why is it so bad to do sorcery? First of all, just to discuss the basic idea.
Yeah.
Why is it so bad?
But
Liable
your
to
average
death.
person is not capable of doing it.
The truth is, that many people do study this. There's
You mean there's a way to acquire the?
there is an institution in America called the Church of Satan.
Oh boy,
Did you know that?
the churches.
Yeah, it's an official institution.
Okay, but that's
It's called the Church of Satan. That's what they practice over there, sorcery. That's what they learn. Did you know that? Yeah,
But we're talking about for us.
Yeah, there could be anybody.
Jews.
What difference does it make? You could be a Jewish, you could be anything, whatever you want. You go over there, you study that stuff, or you could learn it from your grandmother. You know what I mean? Some people's grandmothers also know how to do these things. That's the idea, right? So why is sorcery considered to be so bad that a person is liable to death? Such a severe thing. So you know what it is? The Chazal say something very severe about sorcery. They say, "Kasher kishuv shemachish et famalia shel mala." What does that mean? That what sorcery does is basically it defies the laws of nature. It allows a person to defy the laws of nature, to
So
escape from them.
Why does God give you the power to do it?
That's a good question. You can ask the same question, by the way, about murder. Why does God give you the power to murder somebody? Because that's the way you have free will.
Murder is not exactly a power to do magic.
Right, but still, you're taking somebody's life. I mean,
the other
there's
thing
nothing more severe than that.
The other thing I always thought about
Yeah.
sorcery was it wasn't going to be the sorcerer that was ultimately going to be punished.
Yeah.
If you ask a sorcerer to do something for
Right,
you,
right.
you're going to have to pay the price.
They're both punished.
I
You know
see.
why? Because the truth is, but the sorcerer is worse. You know why? Because he does it for a living.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He does it all the time. This guy is a one-time deal. But this guy does it for a living. It's like that's a profession. Like these these people who read this and read that, all kinds of things. All kinds of nonsense, right? All the stuff that goes on. All kinds of dolls, right? This, that voodoo, all that stuff. What it is.
So you're not even allowed to do those things with a coffee cup where you read
No,
somebody's
that's not allowed to
future.
do that.
It's
Not allowed to do
allowed
that. That's a different prohibition. It's like divination. Like fortune telling.
Fortune.
It's similar to sorcery.
I see.
It's very similar to that. But sorcery, what's happening is that you're doing some kind of an act in order to defy the laws of nature. Right. It's doing
To
something like
change.
magic. Like something out of the
alter-
ordinary. Right.
To alter fate.
Right. Exactly. That's the idea.
Yeah.
So this is the why Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't like.
Remember years ago,
Yeah.
somebody brought someone here,
Yeah.
and our people from the community.
Oh yeah, I remember. We talked about
Is that allowed?
No, not allowed
It
to do
wasn't
that. That
allowed.
was very foolish what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, very foolish. He realized then that he made a mistake.
I see.
Meanwhile, he pocketed some money over there. Yeah. Okay, he got some profits over there.
I see.
So anyway, back to our discussion. Right? So the problem is like this, as we said, that a person does these kinds of things, he's defying the laws of nature. So therefore, the Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want that. In other words, if he says, listen, this is the way it has to be, and you're trying to escape from that, you're trying to escape the decree of God. God wants it this way, and you want to make it some different way. So you're interfering with His providence. So Kadosh Baruch Hu takes that very personally. Who are you? Try to interfere with me. I have a certain way that I run the world, and you're trying to get around that. You're trying to make some kind of a loophole and get around and try to alter my providence. Kadosh Baruch Hu takes that very, very seriously. It's considered to be a very serious offense. And this is the reason why that the person is liable to death if he does sorcery, because you're going against the will of God, like changing His will in this world, the way He runs the world. It's considered to be something very serious. So therefore, a person who does it, right? So the Chazal tell us that there are several types of sorcery that there were in the times of the Bible, and they were pretty, crazy things. I mean, all kinds of nutty stuff. One of the most interesting things, which is depicted in the book of Shmuel, in Shmuel Bet, and Shmuel Aleph talks over there about the king Shaul. The first king was Shaul. So what happened was that Shaul was like a zealot. He was like a fanatic. Like, what does that mean? That he wanted to make sure that the Jews keep all the laws. So he tried to enforce everything. Like with a heavy hand. You know what I mean? So one of the things he did in order to enforce the laws, that he shut down all the sorcerers. All the the ladies, who do sorcery. He shut all of them down. He sent his emissaries, FBI, Shabak, all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
Shin Bet. He sent them over there. Every place where there was sorcery, quarantine them. Shut them down. Place is quarantined. That's it. Finished. So what happened was that in the time of Shaul, all the sorcerers were like underground. They were very scared to do, like in the open, these kinds of things, because they knew that if Shaul would find out, right, they were going to get punished for that, right? They knew that it was very severe, it was very scary. So they all shut down. It was all shut down, the business. So what happened was that, what's the irony over here? The irony is that Shaul himself was in the need of these services in the end. You know what I mean? He's the one who shut them down. And now he himself is looking to get the service. This is the idea, right? Something very, very strange. So what's the story? The story goes like this, right? That Shaul, as the Chazal teach us, he did two major sins in his kingdom. How long did his kingdom, by the way, last? It was only 2 years. Very short kingdom he had. It was like a minor league kind of thing, like just he preempted, the real king who was David, Davidic dynasty. He was just a he preempted that. Introduction, some kind of opening act, opening band. He was the opening band for the kingdom. Short kingdom, 2 years. So what happened was that Shaul, he made two big sins during that time. The truth is, right, they say the Chazal, that Shaul was a big tzaddik. He was like totally righteous, But when it came to the way he ran the kingdom, he was a little bit sloppy, not so mindful of the kingdom, how to deprive. He wasn't such a great king, in his performance. As an individual, he was very great, as a private individual. But as a king, he was like kind of like shabby. So what happened was that there was two things he did. So to concentrate, let's just run through them quickly. The first thing was that Shmuel Hanavi, right, the prophet Shmuel. What happened was they told Shaul, okay, you're going to battle now against the Philistines, against the Philistines, Palestinians, right? Same thing, right? They're Palestinians also at that time. So what happened was that he says, wait for me until the morning, till I come, and then we'll go out to battle. So Shaul panicked, and he wasn't able to wait for him. So he jumped the gun, and he started the war before Shmuel came. So Shmuel told him, he says, listen, what's with you? He did a sin. What was the sin? The sin was that you defy the orders of a Navi, of a prophet. It's considered to be a very big sin. A person who defies the orders of a prophet is very liable for that. So Kadosh Baruch Hu, already was fed up with Shaul after he did that first sin. He didn't forgive him for that. But now he tested him again. He said, okay, I'll give you one more chance. Let's see, if you fail the next time, I'm going to give you the boot, and kick you out. So what happened was they told him one very simple thing. We talked about this before, maybe, I don't know if you were here, but he told him, I want you to wage a war with Amalek. Go and destroy all of them, right? Don't leave anything alive.
I remember.
No males, no females, no children, no animals. Wipe them out totally, from head to toe, from A to Z, right? Everybody in the phone book, right? Don't leave anybody in the phone book over there. It was alive. So Shaul, he made a mistake. What was his mistake? That he started to have these moral questions, Is that the right thing to do? Maybe it's immoral, whatever, all these kinds of things, right? Like these leftists today, they teach us morality, Don't kill in the war, Go with the silk gloves, Teflon, Go out there, give them a big hug, the terrorists, That's what they tell you to do, right? These left-wingers. You know how they're crazy they are. Right? That's the idea. They give you all kinds of orders. Stand down, don't shoot at them. Don't do this, be a gentleman, fight with them like a gentleman. How can you fight? They're animals, these people, You can't fight an animal like a gentleman. You know what I mean? That's not the way it goes. So Shaul also got into this, poor spirit. So what happened was they started to get these qualms, these questions about it. Is it moral to do that? Why kill the children? What do they do? What's their sin? The children haven't sinned for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore what he did was, in the end, he left somebody alive, Who was that? The king, right? The king, he left him alive. And he also left alive the animals.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was that Shmuel, after the war was over, he comes, to greet Shaul. He tells him, no, you did the job. Like we told you. This time, you followed the orders or you didn't follow the orders? You like to be independent, You're an independent contractor, you. So it tells him, yeah, we did everything, they're all dead, believe me, we knocked out everything. So he says, oh, you knocked out everybody? So what is this that I hear, there's these noises of animals. What did you do? What's going on? Where did you get these animals from? So he says, oh, the animals, we didn't kill them. Because we had mercy on them, we want to eat some food, some barbecue. To go to Jeff's house, get some barbecue over there. What barbecue? You're supposed to kill all of them. And also he left alive the king, right? Whose name was Agag.
Mm-hmm.
Agag was like a very gentlemanly guy, very supple, very, very smooth, very, one of these, like gentle guys, And so Shaul, had mercy on him. You know what I mean? He didn't want to kill him, He looked like a, one of these like European, gentlemen, everything, in the right place, things like this. Very gentle, gentle hands, gentle movements, and very gentle voice. You know how it is, right? With these Englishmen, they're very,
Portuguese.
Yeah. You know what it is, right? So that's the way he was, Agag. He was one of these guys. So Shaul left him alive, right? So Shmuel comes and sees. He says, "What did you do? You left the animals alive? You crazy? Why was he so crazy about the animals? That they should kill the animals? You know why? Because the Amalekim, they were sorcerers, like we said, right? They also were sorcerers. They knew how to turn themselves into animals in order to hide. They had this power, This is the reason why I told them to kill the animals. So what happened was that some of them survived like that. That was one thing. The other thing was that when he left alive the king, Agag, so what happened with Agag was, come join us, Shalva. Thumbs down. We always try to bring you in. We always try. We never give up. God bless you. Okay. So what happens is that meanwhile, while Agag was alive, they say, right, until Shmuel came, he managed to meet some girl on the way, and impregnate her. So he got her pregnant. So this way, right, Amalek didn't die out. His son continued. Right? That's what it was, And then we got Haman, right? Same family. Amalek came from there. And also Hitler, same thing. Another Amalek. So you see that we're suffering until this day because of the mistake of Shaul. He didn't want to kill the king. Kill the king. He didn't want to kill the king. Tell Dio about that. Okay? So what happens is that now Shmuel comes and he looks at Agag, tells him, what happened? They left you alive. He takes a sword, cuts him up into pieces, He dismembered him. A prophet, can you imagine? Prophet takes a sword and dismembers this guy. But meanwhile, he impregnated a woman already. It was too late. So that's what happened, right? That's the idea. So then what happened was that after Shaul, there was the second sin that he did. He didn't follow the orders also here. He messed up the orders the first time. Now he messed up the orders again, right? So Hashem said, enough of you already. Enough. I'm sick of you.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring somebody better than you. Who was that? David, right? He chose David to take his place.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was in the interim, while, this kingdom of David was being established and Shaul was like being eliminated, more or less, Shaul was still alive. So what happened was that there was a war that they waged against the Pelishtim before he died. And he died in that battle, Shaul.
So they were Palestinians.
They call them Pelishtim, right? The Philistines.
Yeah.
The same name, same root. Right? I don't know if they're the same people, etymology-wise. I don't know exactly if they.
No, because we always say that, as far as we're concerned, Palestinians don't really exist.
Exist, right?
They're just
No, there
Arabs.
wasn't. You're right.
They're just Arabs.
But that's the reason why they call themselves Palestinians. You know why? Because they want to say that they're descended from those people.
Yeah.
So they have a legitimate claim on the land.
Mm.
That's the idea, It's all a trick that they pull, these tricks.
So they're not.
To be honest with you, we don't really know where they're Arabs, basically. They're just
Yeah,
Arabs.
yeah.
That's what they are. They're Arabs. So what happened was like this, right? That Shaul was very worried about this war that he was supposed to go into. Why is that? Because in those days, the king, what he would do is, before he went into the war, he would go first to the Uri Betumim. That was like a breastplate that the Kohen had, Kohen Gadol, high priest, and he would go to him and ask him, what to do, and they would answer him, give him answers.
Yeah.
It was like prophecy,
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was that he went to the Kohen Gadol. He told him, give me some answers. I want to know what to do with the war. So he got no answer over there, That means that he was rejected, So Hashem didn't want to even talk with him anymore. He was fed up with him already. So what happens is that now he goes also to, other sources, no answer from anywhere. Right? Hashem doesn't answer him. He was going to die in this war, but he didn't realize what was going on exactly. So he started to worry, So what does he do? As a last resort, right, he goes to his chief of staff, Avner, chief general, tells Avner, he says, find me a lady who does sorcery, I want to conjure up Shmuel and Navi, because he already was dead at that time. And I want to see if he can tell me what's going to be with this war, what's going to happen, what I should do. You know what I mean? So Avner now is going, and can you imagine? Shaul was the one who eliminated them, the sorcerers, and now he's looking for one to use their services. Crazy, right? The crazy, it's so ironic. So what happens, he tells Avner, go find me one of these ladies. So what does he do? Who does he find? Some Mefarshim, some of the Chazal, they say, who this was? This was the mother of Avner. She was a sorceress. Can you imagine? She was the mother of Avner, and she knew how to do sorcery. So he comes to Shaul and tells Shaul, Avner, I found you a sorceress. Let's go, She lives in the north. Let's go visit her. So Shaul goes over there, So what he does is, he doesn't want to make he doesn't want to make disgrace himself, going as a king, to go to a sorcerer, the king who's trying to wipe them out is not going to use them. So he takes off his, royal clothing, and he puts on just regular clothing, it looks like a regular guy. He dresses up. So he says, okay, now let's go, this way I won't desecrate the name of God like this. So they go up there, to this lady. And so the king, Shaul, tells her, I want you to conjure up somebody for me, from the dead. So he tells him, who do you want? Right? So he tells her, I want Shmuel Navi, the prophet, Shmuel. So she says, okay, let's try, let's see what happens, right? So she sits down, there was a certain technique that they had. They used to conjure up the dead. It involves, by the way, like a certain bone of a certain animal that doesn't exist anymore. They used to take that bone and use that bone. That bone had a power to conjure up the dead somehow, whatever. All kinds of spells, all kinds of this, chants, all kinds of things. So what happened was that she conjured up Shmuel Navi. Right? Can you imagine? She was able to do it. Bring Shmuel Navi. So what happens is that they say, right, that this sorcery, the way it works is like this. The one who conjures it up, she cannot hear what that person is going to say, but she sees him. The one who was requiring the service, asking for the service, he hears him but doesn't see him. That's the way the sorcery works. So what does that mean? That she was able to see him, not hear him. He, Shaul, was able to hear him but not to see him. So right away, when Shmuel Navi is conjured up, she sees him, and she says, she was in shock. Why was she in shock? So Chazal say what happened was that usually when you conjure up the dead with this sorcery, usually the dead person comes upside down, you know, like like doing jumping jacks, you know, the cartwheels. He comes upside down. So this time, what did she notice? That he was right side up, standing like a man, you know, like a president. So then she realized something was very, very wrong, you know, because this is not the way they're supposed to come up. You understand? So right away, you know, she turns to Shaul. He says, you tricked me, you cheated me. Shame on you. How did she know what happened? So they say right like this, that this sorcery, the way it works is like this, that if you conjure up somebody, it comes upside down, as we said. But if the one who requires the service is a king, so he comes right side up because of the honor of the king, in order not to disgrace the king, you know? You can't treat the king like that. So therefore she realized, you know, that this was Shaul, because he came right side up. So now she got scared, you know, she says, you're the king, you know? What are you trying to do, you know, pull a scam on me? You know, you're trying to bait me into a sin? So you can trap me? Entrapment? Shame on you, why did you do this to me? So Shaul tells her, he says, don't worry, you know, I'm not going to do nothing to you. You're not going to be arrested, no time in jail, no bail, right? No court case, no nothing. Don't worry, it's on the house. Just ask him my questions, get answers. So what happens is that he starts to ask Shmuel, what's the question? The question is, what's going to be in the war? How should I go? How should I do the strategy? What should I do? What's going to be? So Shmuel, the first thing, right, he tells to Shaul, he tells him, why did you conjure me up like this, you know, to bother me like this? You bring him here with sorcery, you know? He says, you know what I thought? When they called me up to come up, I thought that I was going to be judged now for all my sins. I was going to the heavenly court to be judged. You scared me, you frightened me. So he says, because of that, I brought two people with me. Who did he bring? He brought Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron, you know? Can you imagine? He was from the family, the Levi mostly, he was Levi. So he brought them in order they should defend him in the court case. So what happens is, right, that tells him, why did you conjure me up, you know, like this? Why'd you disturb me? With sorcery? So he tells him, he says, I'm sorry, you know, I'm very frightened. The war is coming now, I don't know what's going to be, you know? God is not answering me. I'm not getting answers from the Urim the Tumim, from the breastplate of the Kohen. I'm not getting nothing. I'm sitting here in the dark. I don't know what's going to be. So Shmuel Nabi tells him, he says, don't worry, he says, don't worry. Why not to worry? He says, tomorrow you and me and all your sons, we're going to be all together in one place. You know what that means, right? He's going to die. He's going to go also to their place. Him and his sons. We're all going to be in one place. The Chazal learned from there, by the way, also another thing, which is that if he's going to be in the place of Shmuel and Avi, when he dies, that means that he was going to be forgiven for his sins once he dies. That's why he's going to go and be with such a holy man like that. So this is what happened. So now right, Shaul is panicking, right? So he realizes, you know, that he's going to die. That's what he told him. So he goes out to the war, and he actually did die. Him and his sons, right? They all perished. Only one was left. One or two were left. Everybody else perished. So, why do I tell you this story? Right? You see from here, the sorcery was something which was abolished by the kings. You know, they say, right, before the kings, there were the judges. There was a period of the judges. There was also a book, one of the books of the Bible, which was called the Shoftim, the judges. The judges did not really abolish idolatry, because they didn't have the power to do that. The king is more like absolute monarch, you know? Somebody who has the power to do everything the right way. He has the wherewithal. He has the power to put his foot down and everything. So Shaul was able to do it, but the judges were not able to do it. So he tried to do it, but in the end, can you imagine? He himself went and rendered the services of this lady, right, to do sorcery. They said that he was also punished for that, by the way. That's also one of the reasons why he died, because he made this lady do sorcery. So you see from here, by the way, right, how severe the sin of sorcery is. It's not a joke. You know? Another interesting thing about sorcery, you know what it is? That if you look at the writings of the Rambam, he seems to hold, the Rambam, that sorcery is not really real. It's just like some kind of a fake. It's a scam, you know? It doesn't really work. So then, if according to that, right, why is a person liable to death for such a thing like that? Because he allows himself to be misled, by such a foolish thing. But the Rambam says it doesn't really work sorcery. It's a fake. So the question is like this, right? Is really the halacha like the Rambam? Mm-hmm. Is he right? Mm-hmm. So the answer is no. Mm-hmm. This is one of the famous mistakes of the Rambam, by the way. The Rambam didn't make many mistakes. This was one of them. One of the mistakes the Rambam made was that he thought that sorcery was not real.
Yeah.
And came later on, right? The later rabbis who were like Mekubalim, Kabbalists. The Rambam, they say he didn't learn Kabbalah. He didn't have a tradition for that. Nobody taught him Kabbalah. He didn't have a rabbi to teach him.
So why should we trust anything else that he says?
So what happened was, because the Rambam was, in terms of his halachic works, they're like, super amazing, right? When it comes to his knowledge in Kabbalah, he was, a little shabby, on the shabby side. Yeah. So he thought that sorcery is not real. This was one of his mistakes, So came later on the Mekubalim, the Kabbalists, and they said, excuse us, but what you wrote about the sorcery is nonsense.
Yeah.
That's the idea. That's what he... So, what does that mean? That the truth is, in truth, that Kabbalah is, the sorcery is real. It's not just something which is, some kind of a game, some kind of a... maybe you can put it on silent mode. So, that's the idea. That's what I do with mine, by the way. Put it on silent mode.
Yeah.
No noises. Very good. Okay. So... let's go a little bit further on. Another interesting idea here. There's a lot of interesting things over here and important things as well. One of the interesting things is like this, right? That here we learn the concept of majority in the Torah. What does that mean? That when there's some kind of an issue with halakha, so we go like the majority of the judges. The majority of the judges are the ones who we do the halakha like them. Mm-hmm. Where does it say that? It says like this, right? Lo tiyeh acharei rabim le'ra'ot ve'lo te'aneh al rov al riv lintot acharei rabim le'atot. Right. So what that means is that when you have a majority, we go like the majority. That's what the pasuk is telling you. So therefore, really the concept of ruling like the majority is something which comes from the Torah. Not something really new that was made up recently. This is something that which is goes way back in our Torah, right? In our culture, yeah. This whole idea of majority. So what does that mean? That until this day, by the way, when we have a question halakha, still the rule of majority very much applies. Even though there's a difference, by the way. What's the difference? Here, what the Torah is talking about, you have one bet din, you have a court, and they're all together deliberating, and then they talk with each other, and they take a vote, and we go like the majority. But when it comes to our majority, we're talking about rabbis who were in different generations, they never even met each other, some of these rabbis. Most of them, So even then, when were not able to deliberate together, they never met each other. Nevertheless, we still have a custom, even though this rule of the Torah doesn't really apply, maybe in a case like that, but nevertheless, the custom by us anyway is to go like the majority. So the concept of majority, until this day, is considered to be something very, very primary and very essential in Torah law. Very good. Another interesting thing that we find in the Parsha, there's so many of them, Lo tisa shem hashav. What does that mean? There's several meanings to this pasuk, but one of the most important things for us is that a person is not allowed to accept lashon hara. What does that mean? If a person tells you something derogatory about your fellow man, about your fellow Jew, you're not allowed to believe him. They say that if you believe him, your sin is greater than the one who told you. That's how heavy it is. So what does that mean? A person has to know, if you heard something from somebody, and it's not really been established yet, it's not really been corroborated. It's just a rumor, let's say, whatever. Somebody told you, you're not allowed to believe that. But what you are allowed to is to be choshesh. What does that mean? To be concerned, maybe it's true. In other words, to protect yourself sometimes. You need to be concerned about that. In order that a person shouldn't harm you, or something like that. So to be concerned about it, be suspicious, you can be suspicious. But to believe it as a fact, not allowed to believe it as a fact. Could be that it's not true. How do you know? Just because somebody told you, one person told you something, doesn't make it into a fact. Could be that it's a lie. That's the idea. Okay, very good. Another interesting thing is Elohim lo tekalel v'nasi be'amecha lo ta'or. So it tells you over here that you're not allowed to curse a judge. Let's say, right, you went to a court case and the judge ruled against you, so you cannot curse him and say, go to Azazel, go to,
What kind of a court are we talking about here?
A Jewish court we're talking about, right? Where there's Jewish judges. So to curse that judge, it's considered to be a big sin. Why is that? Because that person is trying to rule according to the Torah, according to halakha. And you're trying to curse him. Why are you cursing him? Because you don't like what he rendered? What can you do? That's the way life goes.
It could be wrong.
It could be, but probably more likely that you're wrong. You know what I mean? He knows better than you. So why are you cursing him? If you first you should check if he made a mistake.
Yeah.
Before you go run out and curse. Shani, why are you cursing somebody like that? It's not allowed to do that, right? And same thing when it comes to a leader, by the way, as well. Like they say, don't curse the leader as well. Like a president, let's say. A person is the president of the country, to curse him, not allowed to curse somebody like that, because that person is considered to be the leader of the people. You're cursing him, the judge, the president, these are very important people, very prominent people. But the truth is, to be honest with you, it also applies as well to regular Jew. What does that mean? It says in the Shulchan Aruch, Choshen Mishpat, it says over there, you're not allowed to curse any Jew. What does that mean, by the way? That means that if a person is a decent person, nothing, he's not a sinner, he's not, whatever, he's not a troublemaker, you're not allowed to curse him. Just because he did something which doesn't find favor in your eyes, just because, he upset you a little bit, or whatever, he did something a little bit, untidy, unseemly, so what? Because that you have to curse him. Not allowed to curse a Jew. What's the exception to the rule? There's always an exception to the rule. The exception is that when you have a Jew who's a sinner, and he was also causing problems for the community as well, for himself as also for the community, right?
Yes.
Or one of the above as well.
Mm-hmm.
A person like that, it's a mitzvah to curse him. You know why? Because he's a sinner, he's a troublemaker. A person like that who makes trouble for the community, causes people to sin, causes people to be misled, right? To err, all kinds of things like this. He causes people to go away from the Torah. He causes people, to drift away from the fear of God. Every time you mention his name, they say you should curse him. Why is that? Because his name should be blotted out. We don't want a person like that to live. A person who's causing troubles like that to the people, humanity. But if it's a decent human being, it's a decent Jew, doesn't have to be the best Jew in the world. He's a decent guy, Okay, so he made a mistake. If to curse him because he made a mistake, or he did something, doesn't find favor in your eyes. He offended you a little bit, whatever, So you got to curse him because of that? You cannot do that, right? They say, by the way, Gemara says something amazing about that. It says that if you curse your fellow Jew for doing something wrong to you, that person will be punished because you cursed him also. The curse takes effect. But you'll be punished first. That's the idea, right? Why is that? Because you cursed him. They say the one who curses, they punish him first, and then they punish the person that he cursed. What's the reason for that? Why they punish him first? Because he maybe had an ulterior way alternative way to solve the problem. He could have taken him to court. He could have sued him. He could have spoken to him. Getting some mediators to come in between. He didn't do any of that. He just wanted, and he cursed the guy. He doesn't want to go through any of the trouble, to solve the problem in a more humane,
Mm-hmm.
gentlemanly way. He wants to go and curse, Why are you in such a hurry? First try maybe something more,
Right.
more, something more cordial. That's the idea. You don't want to try that. No, right away to the curses, No, it's not good. But the truth is that when a person has no way to get his justice, there's no court that can help him, So then it's a different story, you know what I mean? There's no way for him to get the justice. So then it may be justified to curse in a case like that when a person did something very severe, He's a big sinner. Something like that. But in general, though, it's a general rule, you're not allowed to curse any Jews. You shouldn't curse them. No reason to curse a Jew. It has to be something very, very severe to get into such a scenario like that. It has to be something very, very, very bad. Very good, you got the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Another important one, we'll finish with this and then we'll go to Mishlei. Talks about the hero of the prohibition of interest, that how forbidden it is that a person should charge interest when he loans money to his fellow Jew. Like these people used to, these people. I won't tell you who they are, right? You know they are. These people, these lowlifes who, suck the blood out of everybody, by lending them on interest. They destroy their lives like that. That's what they do. So it's considered to be, by the way, a very grave sin, lending on interest. So who sins over here? The one who lends or the one who borrows? Both of them. Both of them are considered to be sinners. The one who lent on interest and the one who borrowed on interest as well. If you agree to do that, two people, they agreed to it, they're both punished on that. They say that this sin is considered to be one of the most severe sins, lending on interest. What does that mean? That a person doesn't have a portion in the world to come. If he does this, and didn't do tshuva, he lends on interest, he never repented on that, considered to be something very, very, very severe. When it comes to a goy, by the way, that's something else. You can lend the goy an interest, and also you can borrow from him interest if you need to. No prohibition of interest with a goy, only with a Jew. That's the idea. They say, by the way, there's a story brought down in the Mefarshim. They talk about the issue that, they say how severe interest is? That a person who collects money on interests, lends or borrows on interest, what happens is that if he lives in Eretz Israel, the land cannot accept him over there. It's such a severe sin, the Holy Land of Israel cannot accept his body to be buried in Eretz Israel. Can you imagine such a thing like this? Okay, let's talk a little bit about Mishlei. So it says like this in Mishlei. הולך את החכמים יחכם, ורואה כסילים ירואה. A very important proverb of Shlomo Melech. This is in Perek Yud Gimel, 13th Perek. It says over here that if you go with the wise, you also become wise. That's what happens, right? If you go with the fools, what happens? You'll be harmed, right? So we see from there, right, one of the big dictums of the Torah, one of the big general rules, which is that a person, shouldn't go with the wicked and hang around with them, be their friend, befriend them, befriend the sinners, all kinds of people like that. They say that a person who does that, eventually he'll be influenced by that, and he will also become like them. That's the way it is. And therefore the Chazal said, Oy le'rasha v'oy le'shchina. What does that mean? Woe is to the wicked, and woe is to their neighbor. Because their neighbor is also affected by the wickedness of the person, the sinner. Besides that, they say also another thing, right, which is in the Gemara. It says in Gemara Bava Kama, Lo lechinam halach hazarzir le'orev kiminohu. What does that mean? They say, right, that there's two types of birds. That they look like each other. You know what they are? This is like the raven and the crow. The zarzir and the orev. So what happens is that the Chazal were not sure about the zarzir, if it's considered to be like a kosher bird or not. So therefore, what do? In order to check if it's kosher, what do? They saw which bird does it befriend. So they saw that it befriends the raven. Since the raven is not kosher, they said, since it befriends him, so the crow is also not kosher. That's the idea. So what do you see from there? Right? They say there's an old saying like this, If you want to know what a person is, go look at his friends. Right? Show me your friends, I'll tell you who you are. So what does that mean? That a person who has bad friends, that's also what he is himself. Understand? If he hangs around with losers, he's also a loser. That's the idea. And if he's not yet, he will become. He will get there. Because that person will destroy him. You know what I mean? Little by little, he doesn't feel it, by the way. Doesn't feel it. Little by little, it starts to seep in.
Creeps up.
Exactly. That's what happens, right? So therefore, if a person wants to become wise, go with the wise. They say, this is the reason why, by the way, that when it comes to Moshe Rabbeinu, there were people who in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, that were like his neighbors over there, certain tribes. Who were the neighbors of Moshe Rabbeinu and the tribes? It was Yehuda, Issachar, and Zevulun. So they say the Chazal, the Gemara, they said these three tribes, they all became big chachamim, big, very wise people. You know why? Because they were Moshe Rabbeinu. So what caused them to become wise, to become Torani, to become educated in Torah? Because they went with the wise. Who was that? Moshe Rabbeinu himself, right? Since they went with Moshe Rabbeinu, they became wise. But they say the ones who were neighbors with Korach, who was a sinner, so they became wicked like him, and they sinned and they got destroyed. That's what happened with them again. So if you go with the righteous, you go with the wise, you become also like them. If you go with the wicked and the losers, right, and the sinners, you also become like them. That's the idea. So what does that mean? That a person's surroundings, a person's environment affects you very much. And don't say, oh, it doesn't affect me. I'm immune to that. There's no immunity to that, such a thing like that. To bad influence. How far does it go, by the way, if you want to know? It says in Zohar Kadosh that a person, let's say, who lives in a neighborhood where there's wicked people over there, sinners, he went to a place with sinners over there, wicked people. So what happens is that sometimes he gets sick because of that. He gets damaged. Why is that? The only thing that he did bad was to live with them. He didn't do any sin. But he gets punished for their sins, He becomes like a fall guy. That's what happens. He becomes a scapegoat. Why is that? Because he went to a place where there are sinners. So therefore, once it's Zohar Kadosh, don't go and live in a place where there are sinners over there. Because you're going to take the rap for them. That's the idea. Sometimes a tzaddik can take their rap and become harmed, and even lo alenu can die even because of this reason. Can you imagine? So they say be very careful to live in a neighborhood where there's righteous people there, good, straight people, right? Good, decent people. That's the idea. Tzaddikim. Another one from this Mishle. So it says like this: Tov yamchil b'nei banim v'tzafun le'tzadik chel choteh. If a person who's a good person, you know what it says about him? That he will bequeath his wealth to his grandchildren as well. What does that mean? That his wealth will be passed down to his family, which is considered to be something good, right? There was an inheritance there, so forth and so on. He will have the zechut, he will have the merit to give his wealth overall also to his descendants, because he's a good person. But another interesting thing which just tells you, same verse is that the wealth of the sinners, Kadosh Baruch Hu saves them for who? For the righteous. So what happens is that the sinners amass money, they amass wealth, and in the end comes one righteous guy, one tzaddik, and takes all the money. So Kadosh Baruch Hu takes their wealth and gives it to the tzaddik. So we see, by the way, examples of this in the Torah, that there were many people who got money of wicked people. Like Rabbi Akiva, for instance, right? Rabbi Akiva...
You see it in life.
You see that, right? So Rabbi Akiva, they say, right, that there was this Rasha, this Roman, governor, Turnus Rufus, who was always chiding him, giving him a hard time, asking all kinds of wise out questions, harassing him, whatever. So what happened was that in the end, he waited. He died, he took his wife, she converted to Judaism, he got all his wealth, he was a very wealthy man. He got all the wealth of Turnus Rufus, came to Rabbi Akiva in the end, right? That's what happened. So that's what happens. The Kadosh Baruch Hu saves the money of the wicked and gives it to the righteous. That's what happens. Same thing they say about Paro, right? And Yosef HaTzadik. What happened was that Yosef HaTzadik, the money that came into Egypt, to Mitzrayim, when they were selling the grains, what happened was that Yosef HaTzadik, he made 3 treasures, and he buried in 3 separate places. So they say that money which belonged to Paro is one day going to be given to the righteous who are studying Torah. When the Mashiach comes, that 3rd treasure that was never found yet, 2 of them were already found. One of them was found by Korach. One of them was found by the Romans. That's why the Romans are so wealthy. There's like endless money, No limit there. The 3rd one is going to be for the ones who are studying Torah. That's for Talmidei Chachamim. That's what it says. Okay, very good. You got the idea. One more and we're done.
Okay.
So it says like this.
Just grab a matzah. A little late, but. Too bad Jimmy missed this one. This was a.
So what does it say over here? Something amazing. חוסך שבטו שונא בנו ואוהבו שחרו מוסר. The one who spares the rod hates his son. What does that mean? He doesn't chastise him for his mistakes. He doesn't tell him anything, Okay, keep doing what you're doing. You have to rebuke your son. That's the idea, Tell him, this is wrong, this is right. You got to give him some lessons in morality. This is what a father is for. A father is supposed to train his son in wisdom, in Torah, in morality. So therefore, right, the one who hates to rebuke his son is considered to be like he hates him. You know why? Because in the end he'll turn out to be a bad son, very wicked, very sinner, very sinful son he'll turn out to be, because he never was rebuked by his father. His father never put him in his place. That's the idea. So therefore, the Chazal warn us, make sure, right, that you raise your son with musar, with admonishment. Make sure that he grows up the proper way. Because otherwise, what's going to be is, if you don't admonish him, if you don't rebuke him, he will wind up to hate you in the end. Right? He'll hate you too. Why is that? Because he hates everybody. He's a wicked person. He's a sinner. So even his father he hates, and especially because his father didn't do his job of rebuking him and raising him in the proper way, the ways of the Torah. There's more, but we'll do it next week with Hashem. We'll stop here. Thanks for coming. God bless you. All the blessings to you and your families. Wealth, health, happiness, and even matzot. You can get matzot. Now Pesach is also almost here, David. 2 months is going to be Pesach, and you're going to get new matzot. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen. Amen.